The other thing that I encourage people to do is brand everything. If you, my newsletter example, if you have an online calculator or a tool or a free digital product, make sure you're branding it. Make sure you're making it about you and your company. Do everything that you can to put yourself front and center. And I think we, as marketers, as SEOs, we haven't been good about that historically because we're all about the keyword. We want to rank for this keyword. We got to start introducing ourselves.
Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It is my pleasure to have Cyrus Shepard with us. Cyrus runs Zippy SEO, a global online marketing consultancy based in Astoria, Oregon, home of the Goonies. He writes about Google's algorithm and frequently publishes new studies and experiments. Cyrus has worked as a quality rater at Google and previously led SEO and content at Moz. Cyrus, it's good, really good to have you on the show.
Stephan, thank you very much for having me, and thanks for the Goonies reference. Happy to be here.
So, do you like that movie, Goonies?
The funny thing is, we've been living here for 3 years. Did what a lot of people did during COVID. Kind of moved into a smaller town. I had never seen the Goonies before moving here. Now I think it's contractually obligated to watch it once a year. So every time I fall a little bit more in love with the movie. Love walking the beaches and seeing some of the same sites. So yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a late fan now.
Okay. So that's part of like the entry into the city limits, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. I haven't joined the Astoria Country Club because those people are evil. But
okay. Well, we'll avoid that rabbit hole, and let's talk a bit about Google's algorithm and algorithms and how you reverse engineer them and figure out what's working and what's not working, how that's been done in the past. I know you were a quality rater for a while and you learned some cool things from that, but there are plenty of other ways that you reverse engineer Google. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So for years, I spent a long time working with the software company Moz, formerly SEO Moz. We used to run huge correlation studies across, thousands and thousands of websites and URLs. Today, my ambition is much more focused, and generally, what I do from a data point of view, especially with the last couple of years of Google updates, is Google has made major changes, and we see huge swings in winners and losers. So we have a database of a lot of sites, and generally, what we do is we look at those sites that have won, the outliers. That have done exceedingly well after a Google update. And then we do the opposite for the losers, sites that have just got wiped off the map. And that's a little different than how we did it at Moz, because we're really just looking at the outliers. And then we try to find statistically relevant correlations between those two sets. And we just throw things against the wall. Like, let's look at the title tags. Let's look at the schema. Let's look at, branded anchor text, things like that. And we just, most things don't have a strong correlation. So then again, we're looking for the outliers. What are those factors where out of the hundreds of things that we looked at, what are the things that are really sticking out here? And that's the basis of how we do it.
Yeah. And do you calculate like standard deviation and all that?
Yep. P-values, strength of evidence, all that. Things that I didn't quite understand when I had all the data scientists doing it at Moz. Today, these tools are much more available to, people with, any sort of strong data background. AI is a big help. And I think the important thing to realize, though, even when you find these correlations, you're not saying this is a ranking factor. Let's, using title tags as an example, if we found a huge correlation, we're not saying Google suddenly is honing in on this one factor, but what does this suggest about Google's larger ambitions? Because we know Google is, using a lot of machine learning themselves a lot to, come up with their algorithm. How are they placing websites into buckets for evaluation? How are they putting websites into winners and losers? And generally what we find, not to cut to the chase, what we're finding is Google has become much more anti-SEO over the last couple of years. So things that we used to talk about, optimizing your top title tags, optimizing your internal links, when those are taken to an extreme and combine it with certain business models, those seem to be the sites that are losing more and more, and sites that aren't aggressively attacking SEO, like we've been advising for years, seem to be doing a little better.
Yeah. So are you alluding to the helpful content updates and what?
Yeah. I think Google pulled a big magic trick with us by calling it a helpful content update. I don't think it had anything to do with content when you look at the sites that are winning. It has to do with the aggressiveness of SEO. It was really helpful content. I just call it an anti-SEO update because that seems to be what it was, which hurts me because, I'm part of a group of people that taught folks for years how to do better in Google's algorithm. And all of a sudden, boom, those tactics stop working like they used to. And it's been a big readjustment to me. And I'm not sure the entire industry really realizes what has happened yet. Even to this day, they think, the talk is about Google hates niche sites. To an extent, they do, but it's more like Google just is really fighting back against SEO because we got too good at our jobs.
Right. So what are some of the areas of SEO that seem to backfire the most when you get too good at it?
Yeah. So one thing that personally hurts a lot is internal linking. I did a study a couple of years ago about anchor text. And in that study, we found that the more anchor text variations in your internal linking, that those sites were far and away performing better in Google SERPs than sites that had fewer internal anchor link variations. More recently, when we studied that, after the helpful content update, that relationship flipped. And we haven't published a lot of that. But what we found was sites with more internal anchors were actually on the downward slide. And sites with what we would traditionally consider poor internal linking or poor internal anchors, those were the sites that seemed to survive the helpful content update. So you combine that with a bunch of other signals, and again, it's the sites that were doing it really well, pushing those limits, were the sites that Google punished. And it kind of makes sense because Google is trying to eliminate unhelpful, aggressively SEO'd affiliate ad supported spam, even if it's not spam. So it kind of makes sense that that's what Google was targeting.
And tell us a bit more about your experience as a Google quality rater. How did you get that gig? How long were you there? What did you learn? What were you able to pull from that experience into your work today at Zippy?
Yeah, so I knew the helpful content update was coming. Google announced it like in 2022. They had some really small updates. And I thought, gosh, it seems like something big is coming. So how are they doing this? And I knew they're placing websites, with their machine learning, they're placing websites into buckets. And I'm like, how are they getting this data? And, Google admits that they use quality rater data for machine learning purposes. So and there's evidence that that's exactly how they use quality raters, simply to get, training data. So I thought I should become a quality rater. If nothing else, this is going to make a really good story. So I went online. There's various companies you can apply to, and it's not a great job. If you're trying to make a living as a quality rater, it's not fun. And it took me 2 weeks probably of unpaid effort to land the job because you have to take all these tests. You have to do all this studying. There's the quality raters guidelines, but then the training materials dive so deep into certain sections of that. And you have to know it, kind of not know it perfectly, but know how to apply it perfectly. And so it was test after test. I actually failed one of the tests. I thought I've been doing SEO for 15 years. I don't need to study, but it turns out I had to study really, really hard. And eventually I got it. There's all sorts of orientation. So finally, after 2 weeks, I got my $15 an hour job. And then once you start the work, it's numbing. It's mind killing, numbing work because you're just evaluating websites for hours. You have your mobile phone. That's something a lot of people don't realize. Google's thousands of quality raters evaluate every site on a mobile phone, and then they do the work on desktop, and they're checking their phone. Then there's a little app where you send the results to your phone, and you're scrolling through, and you're checking the websites, and you're scoring, trying to look up who the authors are, things like that. So it's not a great job, but it was very educational, and it really made me learn to look at sites the way Google Google's aspirations are. The sites that you rank high don't necessarily rank well every time, but you can see where Google's quality signals start to come in and what they're trying to do, what their ideas of a quality site are. So it was a really educational experience. Yeah. And I got laid off because Google laid off all North American workers because of a contract dispute, apparently. So I no longer do that, but it was good while it lasted.
At $15 an hour.
Not great. So interesting. Mark Williams Cook, who is a great SEO working in the UK, he recently discovered a Google exploit where he was able to see some of the code behind the scenes. He reported to Google. He got a big bug bounty. But in that exploit, he found that, for every website in Google search results, behind the scenes, there's a quality score attached to it. And I think it ranges from, it's scored from like 0 to 100. And he was surprised because government websites, even if they were crappy, even if they, looked terrible, didn't necessarily answer the user question very well, government websites almost inevitably had a very high quality score. And I thought that telling, because as a quality rater, if quality scores are really all about trust. Would you send your grandma to this website? Would you trust to buy something from this site? Things like that. As a quality rater, Google kind of instructs you to rate government websites extremely high by default. So when Mark revealed that in his Google exploit, that government websites almost always had high quality scores, was not surprising to me at all, and kind of validated what I thought about Google using quality rater data to train their quality algorithm.
Yeah, that makes sense. The quality rater guidelines are like 170 pages. What are some of the most critical nuggets of detail that you want to pull forward from that document for our listener to apply to their SEO tactics?
Yeah, so I think what interests me the most is what Google changed with the helpful content update, the new directives they put in, and they were about experience. Do the creators of the website have experience with the subject matter? Before, in the old days, you could write an article sort of about anything, and if you had enough domain authority on the internet, you had enough people linking to you, you could kind of rank about any topic. You could review any topic. Wirecutter, New York Times could review any sort of product they wanted. Now, quality raters are looking at the creator's experience with a certain topic. So you want to demonstrate that on the page. If you're reviewing a product, you should have pictures of yourself actually reviewing the product. Talk about your methodology, how you took things apart, how you ranked and reviewed things. Do you write about this thing often? Is your subject, a subject matter expert in things? So experience is definitely one thing. The other thing that I think people ignore, and this is huge in the quality raters guideline, is the idea of effort. How much effort have you put into this web page? Did you write it with ChatGPT and just, copy and paste? Or did you actually put some nice design into it? Did you actually do original research? Do you have information on there that no one else has? And I bring this up, and sometimes people say, well, Google is not a judge of effort. Google can't tell how much effort I actually put into the page. Well, they kind of can, because they're using machine learning, looking at they have a bucket of pages over here that people like me have scored as high effort, and a bucket of pages over here that we've scored as low effort. Then they, do a machine learning algorithm and try to decide, where does your website land? Yeah. So they can't actually tell how much effort you put in, but they can look at you and sort of guess. And it's an imperfect algorithm, but you want to look like those pages that have put more effort in. So effort, experience, those are two things that, they're wishy-washy ranking factors, but I think they're highly important and often overlooked.
Yeah, and experience is something that if it makes sense when you think about, you could ask ChatGPT about the implications of getting a brow lift, and it's just going to give you some answer, but that answer could be wrong. It could have hallucinations in it, and then your health is at stake, or at least your looks after you get the brow lift from some faulty advice generated by whatever LLM. So having expertise that's verifiable, and let's say it's a plastic surgeon who's writing the article about the implications of having a brow lift, that can be verified by a quality rater looking at the page, clicking on the link on the author's bio section there to go to a larger, longer page about the author, see that the person has certifications and diplomas and a certain number of years of experience, et cetera, et cetera. So how far does a quality rater go in checking that sort of information? Will he or she go to the about page or go to the author page to try and collect that information about things like diplomas and certifications and all that?
Yeah. So I would say it's more superficial than what people think. And you have to realize, the quality raters, they're rating, they're working fast. When you get a search result, you got 10 blue links, and you need to move on to the next task, and you're just doing that over and over again every day. A couple of checks that every quality rater will do is they will do an independent Google search about the website. So you can Google listed in the quality raters guidelines are a number of queries, x.com reviews minus x.com, things like that. There's also, if you go to the search results, there's a little thing called about these results, and you can see more about these websites. And these are mentions and links about the website that you can, do a quick reputation check. So those are basic things that, every quality rater will do. But it's also really just kind of looking at the website. Like if I'm evaluating a query like bicycle tours in France, and I'm looking at a bunch of results, I'm going to look at, what does this company do? Does this company specialize in bike tours in France? I'm going to look at the navigation, or do they specialize? Are they just an article site that just is trying to rank for this term? So your things like navigation, the photos that you put. Photos are so huge in this process, especially when evaluating experience. And it's something I've worked with it's something I've changed about my own SEO process in the last year and working with clients, that we emphasize photos so much more and displaying that firsthand experience, emphasizing pictures of people, things like that. And we seem to have positive results for it. So it's really, I know we want a checklist, but it's really more psychological, putting things in these buckets. But I think certain things you can do are really quick and easy. Just showing people I am an expert in this subject matter.
Makes sense. So what were some of the things that you missed the most at Moz like you moved on from Moz? I don't remember how long you were there for, but it was quite a while. Like, what do you miss the most about the technology and the culture and the studies and the leadership and so forth? And are you incorporating any of that into Zippy?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that question. Moz was a very magical experience for me. I came up in my career through Moz. I was working as just a freelance SEO in the Seattle area. And I was just getting started in my career. I thought I was getting underpaid. So I Googled, how much an SEO in Seattle should make. And this job listing came up for Moz, and it was a customer service rep. I'm like, well, I'm not really customer service, but I love the company and I know SEO. So I can answer calls about, the tool and things like that. And so I started, they put me on morning shift answering calls, which meant my first job in the morning was unloading the dishwasher. It was a very small company at the time. So I'd be there at 6 a.m. unloading the dishwasher, like, yeah, I'm working my dream job now. But I caught a few lucky breaks, and I was very quickly promoted into the role of lead SEO at the company. Yeah. And it was a magical time. It felt like we were, Rand Fishkin, the founder, great leader, great person, provocateur of the internet. It felt like we were inventing the internet for a while. making up our own rules. It was an age of discovery, doing things that were just amazing. Now it feels like everybody's just sort of copying everybody else on the internet. And there's less originality, less daring. But that was a magical time. And one thing that felt great is that, Moz had this philosophy called tag fee, which was transparency, authenticity, generosity, things like that. But one of them was exceptionalism, that we produce exceptional work. And that was such a great philosophy to live by, because that meant we could put extra effort into everything that we did. And we could use that as a justification within the company. Like, no, we need to make this better. So if I'm releasing a ranking factors report or a tool, we would spend all the extra time on it to make sure it went wow when we released it. And during the golden age of Moz, that's what it felt like. Every few months we were just releasing something that was wow. And it was great. And I'm trying to do that work, with Zippy now, that when we do put something out there, it's a wow moment, something we feel great about, that's original and new and fun. And we've got some things in the works that I can talk about in a few weeks that I think are going to be exciting. But that lesson of exceptionalism and generosity and the creativity, I think that's missing a little bit in today's SEO world, and I really miss that.
Yeah, and I bet you miss Rand as well.
Yeah, fortunately we've remained good friends. We used to be practically neighbors in Seattle. I only get to see him in person a couple times a year now, but him and his wife Geraldine. But friendships with them has been one of the most valuable thing that came out of that Moz experience.
Yeah.
So
Rand is a great guy.
I'm one of his biggest fans.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know how I got to end up co-authoring a book with Rand, the Art of SEO, came about.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, tell me.
So he and I were on a panel together called "Give It Up" at SMX Advanced.
Yeah.
And I blew his socks off. He was just really impressed with all the ninja stuff that I came up with in my presentation. And he didn't really say much to me at the time, but a few weeks later, we happened to be at another conference called SES Toronto, and in the speaker room, he came up to me and gave me a hug. And I hardly knew the guy. And here he came up and gave me a hug. So I was like, wow. And he told me, you really brought it. That was incredible. I loved that presentation you gave. Because I've reverse engineered how to ungroup grouped Google results. So when there's like position 1 and 2, but it was actually position, let's say 1 and 9. But you didn't know it was 1 and 9. It just looked like 1 and 2 because Google was kind of artificially inflating the position visually. I showed how you could figure out what the true position was, by adding num equals 9 into the URL and num equals 8 and so forth until it finally dropped an indented result. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge, the awkwardness I'm in, that I really should just be interviewing you. That people look at me doing SEO for 15 years, but you've been there since the beginning doing, expert level stuff. A lot of it that a lot of people today don't realize some of the foundational knowledge that, you started sharing back in the day. So my hat is off to you, sir. And, in that perspective, I'm there. Thinking what I have done is impressive, but man, you are the original OG. So kudos to that.
Yeah, it's been a long haul. Now it's 30 years, 30 years ago. I built my first websites in 1994. And they were database-driven, real-time updatable websites by the users. They would update the database. Yeah. Anyway, so that situation there where he came up, gave me a hug and everything, it just really it was really special. And we had a really wonderful conversation. And in that room, in that speaker lounge, we decided to do a book together. And it just so happened that Danny Sullivan, founder of SES and of all these different things, Search Engine Land and SMX and everything, right? So he happened to be at O'Reilly's unconference at that very moment. So Rand texted or called. I think he just called Danny, and Danny was at Foo Camp, Friends of O'Reilly conference. Oh, you want to do a book together and you're looking for a publisher? Well, I happen to be at O'Reilly's Foo Camp. Do you want me to ask them if they want to do, your book? And I'm like, yeah. So within minutes, we had a book deal. Right? It was verbal, but it turned into like the official contract and everything. It was going to be the SEO cookbook, and then we got teamed up with Jesse Stricchiola to do the Art of SEO together. Yeah, so that whole thing came about because Rand came up and gave me a hug.
Yeah. That book has had such longevity. What edition is out now?
Fourth edition. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I've got it. It's a few feet away. I'm not going to go grab it, but yeah, it's 770 pages now. It was almost 1,000 pages in the third edition, and O'Reilly was like, "You can't make this any bigger. Please make it smaller because every time you add several hundred pages to it, it sells fewer copies." It makes sense, right? Like, who wants a big brick to have to read to learn SEO?
And so much of that fundamental information is just so relevant, despite all the changes in Google and everything else. The basics of information retrieval and how Google works is so relevant today to people coming up. They would do well to read chapters in that book.
Yeah, well, thank you. But some stuff had to go, even though we loved it. There's no glossary in the fourth edition, so that was a sad removal. But it's a very up to date book. You can get plenty of definitions from Wikipedia, but the core knowledge is in the book. So
yeah, I had that book on my desk my entire time at Moz.
That's awesome. Okay, so enough about me and about Rand. What inspired you to start Zippy? Because that's quite a different sort of a deal than working at an agency where there's kind of a cult of personality and the whole ethos and all those brand identity and stuff.
Yeah, Zippy has been my I've had a few stumbles. It's been an educational journey learning what Zippy is. So Moz was acquired by J2 Global, Martech, kind of a very large publishing company that owns a lot of online brands like PC Magazine and Ookla, things like that. Very large company, good people, had a good experience with all of them. But it was time to move on. It was time for me and a lot of people to move on. We just didn't want to be a part of, it felt like a very different company at that point. It wasn't, it was just not the same thing. I have nothing bad to say about J2 Martech, very positive things to say, but it wasn't Moz. It wasn't the Moz, the tag fee, the inventing the internet, the be out there and, make some controversy kind of company that I grew up with. So it was time to move on. I started my own software company. That didn't last long. I learned some entrepreneurial lessons. My partner and I just couldn't make it work. We were fighting every day, which, it was sad. So I learned I wasn't very good at that. So I've been consulting ever since and doing my research. I feel like my consulting is just pays the bills so I can do my research. And that's a horrible business model. My clients don't like just pay if I can share insights and secrets with them, that helps a lot. So I'm trying to transition a little bit. I've always enjoyed connecting. A lot of people come to me. I'm in a fortunate position as a consultant. I get far more leads than I can handle. So one part of my career that I've always enjoyed is connecting people, people looking for specific SEO help. If they're looking for, local SEO or, link building outreach or PR campaigns, connecting people to the right thing. So I'm scaling that out a little bit, part of my business. Social media part of my career has always been social media, talking about things. That's been an interesting journey, and I'm not quite sure what's happening there. That's going through some transitions, but so we're having fun, but that's where Zippy's at. Basically, a consultancy that's exploring a lot of interesting things on the side.
So let's talk a bit about disavows, because I know you did a recent blog post, or at least updated it recently. I disavowed every link to my website. Here's what happened. Let's talk about you, because I love your research. I love you just have a hypothesis and you run out and you test it. That's really cool.
So great question, because I've kind of updated this and I haven't published the results of the study. So a little background. I disavow. There's questions if the Google's disavow tool works, what it's used for. So I thought, well, let's just disavow every link I can find to my site. So I went through, Google Search Console, Webmaster Tools. I looked at Ahrefs, Semrush, and I just combined everything into a huge disavow file and disavowed at the domain level, something like several thousand websites. And I waited a couple months and nothing happened. If anything, my rankings went up during that time, a marginal amount. And I published, I don't think Google Disavow Tool is doing anything. And I published the results, and a lot of people came back and like, really interesting. Oh, you should have left it in longer. Or, another theory was Google ignored your disavow file because it obviously no one disavows every link. And Google says they may choose to ignore directives in the disavow file. So I did another test. I disavowed a third of my links. And it wasn't necessarily my best links. They're medium tier links. And I submitted that. And I left it in there. And I waited 3 months, 4 months. Nothing happened again. It may be a little down at this point, but I hadn't been publishing a lot of content, so I couldn't tell. So I re-upload just to see. I re-uploaded the original every link disavow file, and I waited again. And just like I think a week and a half ago, I remembered I had this experiment running, and I looked at my traffic. And literally over the course of a year, this entire experiment, nothing has happened. Google ignored every file that I put up, and maybe there were little flutters, but I can't read anything statistically significant into that. So it's more like voodoo at this point. So maybe the disavow file does something. Maybe it doesn't. But I can't seem to prove it either way, no matter what happens. The most interesting theory that I heard that I almost suspect might be true is that these days, Google's disavow file, we know it works well for if you're been hit with a manual link penalty, which are exceedingly rare, but they do happen, to show that you've disavowed links. The other theory is that Google's disavow tool only works on negative links, really spammy links that have been hurting you. If you have those, it will remove the depressing effect of those spammy links or bad links. Otherwise, it's not going to do anything. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think it's just the disavow tool at this point is just busy work that Google put into Webmaster Tools to get people to click on things, because I can't see that it does anything anymore.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. Okay, so what metric?
I still use it though because I'm superstitious.
That's funny. Do you throw salt behind your back as well while you're doing it?
Yeah. I got I have a general disavow file with a lot of Blogspot domains and known spam sites and things like that.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. Clearly.
Yeah.
What are your favorite metrics? There's the obvious, like Ahrefs, has their authority metrics, DR and UR and so forth, and number of keywords that are ranking in the top 10, et cetera, et cetera. Any kind of like spam rank or brand rank type of metrics, or link velocity, anything that's like kind of not the obvious generally accepted metrics?
Yeah, so the new one that I think we can't ignore these days is it happens to be a Moz metric. It's brand authority. And brand authority is roughly an estimation of the search volume of people who are looking for your brand or your brand related terms. And it's a very imperfect metric because it's kind of hard to determine. Some brands just are really kind of hard to determine those branded terms. But what we saw after the helpful content update, and Tom Capper of Moz has an excellent study on this, is that websites that have low branded volume search terms did really poorly after the helpful content update. And sites that had a lot of branded search volume seemed to be insulated from those results. They thrived. And I've done my own studies looking at branded anchor text, things like that, and those relationships survive every single evaluation that we do. That people searching for your brand insulates you from negative Google updates. So, yeah, but I think other tools. I'd love to see Ahrefs, SEMrush come up with their own brand authority metric to make it more accessible for folks. But they're imperfect tools, so you kind of have to look into your own data and see how many people are searching for you. And so something I've been working on with clients is how do we increase this brand search? And from my data, you don't need a lot. You don't need to become, IBM or Amazon. You just need a little bit. I don't have a ton of people searching for zippy SEO, but I have some. And when we look at two sites that have been impacted, you just need to have some, and you can leverage that. And that's a huge insulating factor. If you can get people looking for your brand and searching for it. I've made mistakes. Like a great example of a mistake I made when my newsletter that is terribly inactive, it's called the SEO Tips newsletter. Why I did that, and everybody knows why I did that. I was choosing a keyword. I wanted SEO tips. I thought that would be great. SEO tips newsletter. I think that was the wrong mistake in this age. Because it's not branded. Anybody can have an SEO tips newsletter. So I'm rebranding it to the zippy something or another. I want that brand into that, because when people are searching for the newsletter, I want them using Zippy. I want to get Zippy out there. I want people to remember Zippy, even if it's just 1 or 2% of them. Getting in there, leveraging that brand recognition, I think is so important today, because that's what Google is rewarding. Google isn't rewarding keywords; they're rewarding brand. So that's the direction we're going. Brand authority. Great question.
Yeah. So how do you move the needle if you've got a really small company? You have very low brand authority. What's actionable from that metric for you? Like, what do you do with that?
Yeah. So that's an excellent question. And the answer is whatever you can. I had one client who didn't have a logo on their site. The irony is they were so customer focused, they didn't want anything to distract from the information. So you go onto their website, the article just starts. Here's how you solve your problem. And their brand information was just a little thing in the bottom of the footer to find out who was actually on this website. I'm like, you got to bring your branding into the top of the website, so at least people know where they are. And maybe if they want to search again, they can find you. So we did that, and they've been seeing some positive results. But now at least we know there's their big, beautiful brand and their name, at the top of the results. The other thing that I encourage people to do is brand everything. If my newsletter example, if you have an online calculator or a tool or a free digital product, make sure you're branding it. Make sure you're making it about you and your company. Do everything that you can to put yourself front and center. And I think we, as marketers, as SEOs, we haven't been good about that historically, because we're all about the keyword. We want to rank for this keyword. We got to start introducing ourselves. I have another client who's done exceedingly well. He works in a formula space, like Excel formulas, things like that. And it used to be just content. Well, he started putting himself front and center in every piece of content, where he's got a picture of himself, got his name, the name of the company. And that's because it's not just information at this point, because anybody can do Excel formulas. But if you're attaching your name to it, you're attaching your picture, you're doing videos of yourself, then it's your Excel formulas. It's Cyrus Shepard's Excel formulas, and just leverage it just a little bit. But we got to start putting ourselves into our content and our company into our content. So it's not just information, because Google has plenty of information. If you want to rank for best things to do in New York City, they have something like 100,000 articles with that in the title. They don't need information about the best things to do in New York City, but they might be interested in what you are doing in New York City if you can establish yourself as an authority in this subject. So it's all about getting ourselves into the content.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I wish I had easier answers, but it's hard work. And that's why building brand is hard.
Right. And especially more important as AI overviews and and ChatGPT are taking more of a front and center position for the searcher, the user. And a lot of times they're not getting to those 10 blue links. They're getting a full answer right from the algorithm. And that algorithm is essentially stealing from all these thought leaders who provided all the research and had all the experience going to all those sites and grading them and all that. And it's very frustrating for a content creator to face this new reality. What do you recommend we do about that?
Yeah, and this is tough because it's the reality, and I think the AI answers are getting scarily good. If I am often Googling things, and myself as a searcher, I'm just not clicking into search results because Gemini is summarizing the articles for me, and I'm just getting that answer. But I am doing a lot more searches that way. They're more rapid. I'm still clicking into search results. And I think a lot of people, if we're looking into our analytics right now, we might see a little bit of decline in traffic, but people's, at least for now, I don't know how long it will last, people are still clicking into search results. I think the answer is, again, going back to that shift of, ChatGPT, Gemini, they're giving information, and Google, everybody has so much information. So we need to shift from a keyword information focus to a brand personality authority focus. So one thing I work with my clients on, traditionally, if you have an article, best mattresses for side sleepers, you would try to get links to, that had best mattresses for side sleepers in the anchor text or things like that. And I'm telling my clients, stop focusing on those keyword rich links. Let's shift to about you. Why are mattress experts? Why are you an authority in the mattress space? So let's go out. Let's get some articles and some links about why you are an authority. I don't want links about the content. I want links about you. So if I can get my clients onto a podcast or do an interview where they're talking about their expertise, I think that's so much more valuable today, than it was 5 years ago when brand building was kind of a fuzzy metric. So getting yourself mentioned in those AI overviews as an authority, as a reference link, that's going to become increasingly important.
Yeah, and a mention that doesn't even have a link necessarily, it can still be valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people we're just getting into, we know of Google's knowledge graph. I don't know what you call it with, ChatGPT and large language models. We're just trying to get out there. We're just trying to get into those graphs of knowledge so that we're referenced more and seen as an authority. And it's all kind of the same.
Right. Yeah. So there are different ways of referring to it, like unlinked mentions is one way to refer to it, but it's not every appearance of, let's say, Zippy needs to be a link to the Zippy website.
Right. Exactly. It's more fun when it's a link, and it's more fun when it's a followed link.
Yes.
But
or two links.
Yeah. Well, and seriously, I do a lot of podcasts like this, and sometimes the podcast will, link to a certain article. Sometimes they don't. It doesn't really matter to me. Doing marketing for my own company, getting the name out there, getting Zippy mentioned as much as possible. That's what's important.
Makes sense. Now, as part of your offerings, do you do audits?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a weird thing because when Google came out with the helpful content update, I was auditing a lot of sites that had seen steep traffic declines, and, which was great because I'm learning and I'm studying, but it's been a real struggle working with sites hit by these Google updates because getting them recovered requires a fantastically huge amount of work. And sometimes you have a completely different website or a completely different business model by the time you're done. And not all clients have the resources to do that or the will. I've had a couple clients slog through and they're seeing great results. Some clients, they've just had to shut down because, they've got a month of runway and they have 6 months of work to do. So it's been an incredibly educational learning experience, but doing those audits have been really humbling and a struggle in a lot of ways. So always happy to do audits, but it's a tough business when you're working with folks who have seen their entire business wiped out, and Google doesn't want anything to do with them.
Is it something that you normally do for a new client? You'll audit their site to get a lay of the land and figure out where the biggest weaknesses and missed opportunities are, or oftentimes you're just jumping right in?
Oftentimes, yeah. Especially I love working with the big, 10 million page sites that, finding something in their sitemap files, or, tweaking some technical issues at scale that can get, 1 million more pages indexed within a month. And we see that, that huge hockey stick growth. Those are really fun. Take a while, but I love doing that kind of work. Yeah. I also tend to work with a lot of early stage startups. Just being from the Seattle tech scene, I had a lot of connections there. So a lot of my clients come to me with no website whatsoever. Now we just start from scratch, and we're like, okay, let's build a 2-year content strategy, and go from there. Those are fun too. Mm-hmm. So I enjoy doing that. It is working. It is weird signing a client with no website and there is no audit to do, and you're like, okay, let's start.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a grassroots kind of ground floor opportunity.
Yeah.
How do you use AI to assist you with things like audits and with content creation, content optimization, link building?
So that's a great question. I'm probably behind a little bit. Every AI solution I've tried for content creation I've been really disappointed in the results. And I prompt everything to craft it exactly the way I want it. I think it's fine for outlining, at least in my stage of content creation. It's fine for brainstorming and outlining, but I just can't have it do the writing at this point. I love using AI to help me with data analysis. I am doing things in spreadsheets these days that I couldn't dream of doing 5 years ago, with formulas that are so overly complicated and work that it's truly amazing. My front end coding skills are amazing now, thanks to ChatGPT. I could fool you into thinking I'm a CSS expert at this point. So those things are fun. But the answer is I'm a little disappointed with ChatGPT to replace most of my content work, my SEO work. I still find it easier to do a lot of those things manually, and I'm not a big fan of some of those automation workflows yet. I think the next 6 to 12 months may change my mind as agents become better and prompts become better. But I'm a little behind.
Oh, I don't know that you're behind. I think you're cautious, and I think that's a smart thing to be. Like, there are tools. I'm not going to name one, but I just looked at one that I was really unimpressed by, and they're kind of cagey about giving examples of sites that they've done the hockey stick for or whatever. So I did find one, or actually one of my team members found one mentioned as kind of like an example site that the founder of the tool set up as a test, and showing, it was up and to the right, it's doing really well. Well, it's tanked. As of at least 2 weeks ago, it's nowhere near what it was before. So it doesn't seem to be working.
Going back to our Moz days, one of Rand's philosophies was do things that don't scale. That's the only way to differentiate yourself long term from the competition. That Google has Gemini. They can create articles and answers at scale much better than you. And so that's not going to be your competitive advantage. You have to do things that don't scale. You have to get the data, get the information that other people don't. So I think a lot of these strategies work, and they may work for a while, but I think the long-term prospects are not looking good for these scalable AI strategies, because the technology is cheap and anybody can do it. So what's your differentiator?
Great point. So what would be an example of a great differentiator? Like, how do you put that into practice of create something that's not scalable that really differentiates?
Yeah. So working with the HCU updates, I was working with a lot of affiliate sites. And there was one affiliate site I remember looking at that never seemed to lose any updates. I'm having trouble remembering the name of it. Something like, it was, I don't want to out them, but I will. It was called Nap Lab. And I haven't checked their traffic recently. They may have tanked by then, but they survived every Google update. And they reviewed mattresses. And it seemed to me, when you look at their reviews, they were doing such hard work. They were videos of them bouncing on the mattresses, data points, the most detailed data points about mattresses you've ever seen in their life. They were doing many things wrong. They were way over optimized. They were targeting. They were doing all the things that we've talked about in this podcast. They were doing them wrong, but they had it was obvious they were spending weeks on each mattresses, getting everything down right, and the videos and everything like that. That's something that doesn't scale. You can't ask ChatGPT to review a mattress for you. You actually have to do the work if you want it to be original. So that's one example. If you're just writing articles, sometimes you have to go above and beyond with comparisons and data and analysis. Explain. If you're just doing informational content, you have to go a little bit beyond the informational content and start doing comparisons, start adding data, adding unique, interview people, things like that. Things that you got to do the things that ChatGPT can't do, and bring that real world experience into the article. And you have to do that every single freaking time. And that's how you do things that don't scale.
Yeah. So what's the thing that you've done that most exemplifies that strategy?
Oh, great question. I would love to scale all my content. I think for me, at least Zippy, we're very proud of our data studies that we publish. And they're studies that nobody else has. So if we write an article on, I don't have a lot of content on my marketing website, but title tag length, which was a topic I was fascinated with a few years ago because we had a tool that did that. You could write an article about what's the optimal title tag length, or you could do a study and research it yourself and publish proprietary data. And that article, I think, has brought me tens and tens and tens of thousands of visits. And it survived. I haven't updated it in years, but it survives because it was so unique and got a lot of links, and it answers people's questions, and it has proprietary data. It has something in it that doesn't scale.
Cool. I know we're getting close to time, so I've got a couple more questions and then we'll wrap. So you said earlier that the prospects weren't looking good for just creating AI-based content and so forth. I'm curious what the prospects are looking like from your perspective in terms of SEO. That we get the SEO is dead kind of mantra happening every year, and it's not dead yet. What do you think the shelf life is of SEO as an industry?
It was interesting. When AI first came out, when ChatGPT was released to the world, I thought that traditional SEO had like a 2 or 3 year shelf life. I think that was overly pessimistic looking back. Nobody knows what's going to happen, but we have a few dynamics. Google and all these AI crawlers, they need content. And they're striking deals with publishers for access to that content. If you're a small publisher, most of us are small, medium publishers. We don't have access to those deals. But the Google's ecosystem and OpenAI's ecosystem, they need an ecosystem where people are constantly feeding them new information. So they're incentivized to send some of that traffic to us. I think it's a lot less than the traffic the SEO world is receiving now. I think it's a fraction. I think the profit margins of publishing companies are going to get squeezed much further than they have in the last 10 years as people rely more and more on AI answers. I don't think SEO is going away. Companies still need marketing. SEOs are, I think it was Michael King who I saw talk the other day. SEOs are uniquely positioned in our skill set to help people appear in AI overviews more than any other industry. So I think we're going to see a little bit of more of a shift to that. I'm working with when I work with a lot of SEOs, a lot of them are, getting into AIO optimization, AI optimization, pivoting to that as a service. Some software companies that are trying to explore this space, getting brands into AI overviews, are reaching out more and more looking for feedback. So I think SEO survives, but it's going to look a little different in 2 or 3 years because people are still going to need our services. The number of SEO firms is probably going to decline, but I don't think marketing firms are going to decline any. But services are going to look a lot different in a while. Yeah. I'm not sure what it's going to look like, but it's going to be different.
Well, the only constant is change, right?
Yes. We gotta change. Adopt early.
Yes. And it's not the survival of the fittest, it's the survival of the most adaptable. That's really Darwin's thesis. It's not that you have to be fit, you just have to be adaptable.
Yeah, and with AI, we're still in the early adopter phase. There is far more land to stake now. Now is the perfect opportunity to get your foot in the door and start learning, and even offering services if you can, than waiting for it to, reach mass market appeal. So yeah, get in early if you can.
Yeah. Okay. Last quick question. This is a branding question, actually. Why the yellow glasses? Were you inspired by Seth Godin?
So I actually it was funny story. It was COVID, and back when you went to a glasses shop and you had to make an appointment, and it was one person in the store at a time. This was in Seattle, following health code regulations. And you had to make an appointment, one person in the store at a time. You weren't allowed to touch the glasses. They had to hand them to you and wipe them down. I'm like, I don't have time for this. My wife went through it and she got a pair. She wasn't really happy. I'm like, here's what I'm going to do. I went to a bunch of online services, online glasses, the cheapest, you get a pair for like $40. And I just took my budget of which was like $200 or $300 that I'd spend in a glasses store. And I just bought like, 7 or 8, the cheapest glasses I could find. And I got them, and most of them didn't fit. If you've ever shopped online for glasses, it's not always the best experience. Most of them didn't fit, whatever. This pair resonated, and I started wearing it, and everywhere I went, people were like, oh, nice glasses, nice glasses. Now I can never not have these. So it's time to order another pair. Fortunately, they still offer them online. And I have to do these. Unfortunately, yeah, Seth, I think he stole my look. But he has more brand authority than I do. So people think I stole it from him.
Well, for now.
Yeah.
For now, right? So your brand authority is shifting, right? Awesome. Okay, so how does our listener or viewer find you, work with you, learn from you? Where do we send them?
Yeah, there's zippy.com, and I'm active on most social networks, but that's a confusing.
So Zippy spelled ZYPPY.
ZYPPY, yeah.
For our listener who's not like seeing anything on the screen, that's important.
Please Google Zippy SEO, ZYPPY SEO.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cyrus. This was a lot of fun and very illuminating and inspiring. And I hope that our listener or viewer actually takes this information and does something valuable with it, because this isn't just edutainment. It's for actionable insights to be applied in your business.
Stephan, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. And we'll catch you in the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.